Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers about their lives in and out of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity and community service. And just spreading positivity. We're all about positivity, inspiration here on the show. And with me today is a very special guest. She is one half of the Chase twins. She's from Colorado, and she's been at it for so many years. We're going to talk about all things wrestling. The one and only Nikki Chase. Nikki, welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So, Nikki, tell me about your childhood and upbringing. I know you're currently in Colorado, but where did you grow up?
So my brother and I are actually from Ohio, so we're Midwest. So we grew up there, and then I headed out here, I don't know, probably about 8 years ago now, and then my brother followed me not too long afterwards.
Oh, okay. So growing up, big wrestling fan, not a big wrestling fan. What got you into professional wrestling?
Well, it's kind of a funny, funny story. So I remember like probably like mid Attitude Era. I just thought like China was like the coolest. Like she hung with the boys and like could hold her own. And my brother and I would watch it. We watched Monday Night Raw. At that time it was 2 hours, and like I was like in fifth or sixth grade, so like staying up till 11 o'clock East Coast time to be able to watch the end of it. So my brother and I would stay up, sneak and watch the end of it. And then as I like got older in high school, it kind of like fell by the wayside. And we didn't, I would know of wrestlers, but I wasn't actively following it. And then one night I was in grad school. So this was like 10 years ago now. And I had just gotten done with finals, which in grad school is like a true pain in the ass. It's like 3 hours of like written exams. So I had come home after a day of taking exams, and Raw was on. And it was an episode where Kane like came up through the mat and like tried to pull like Brie Bella to hell or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But from then on, I was hooked again, and watching it got my brother into it. He made a funny comment one time because we were in a group chat with my mom, and I was texting them what was going on in Raw, and like, oh, she's dragging Brie. Oh, here comes Daniel Bryan. And my brother made the comment, oh no, she's regressed. Like, because I was watching, and now he's like a bigger fan than I am. Watches like keeps up with like New Japan and all of like AEW, WWE. So that's how we got into it. So for the last 10 years.
The cool thing about wrestling is that it just encompasses and appeals to anybody, all ages, whether you're little or an adult. It just, even if you take a break for a little bit, you can come back, and it'll always be there, something that'll always be a form of escapism. So it's just one of those forms of entertainment that's just, I mean, you have to tune in. Like it's just something that's like, if you're watching like a Monday night, if you want to watch something on a Monday night or a Friday night or a Wednesday night, and it's like a ritual, I guess, for, you could call it, like, if that's not there, that something's kind of missing. Something's just not right if wrestling is not, part of your routine. So, yeah. I mean, even if you take a break from it, in your heart, you'll watch it again, so that's awesome.
But of course, I have it recorded. If you miss Monday, like, you have it recorded, so you watch it like down the road. And
yeah, definitely with technology, it's evolved. I mean, when I started watching, I would have recorded on VHS tapes,
Yep.
Like the like SmackDown. I was a big SmackDown kid when they did the brand split and everything, like Raw, SmackDown. I would just tape it on VHS tapes. It was just great. Like, in case I missed it, because of school the next day or whatever, when it was on Thursdays, and then Fridays, of course, I'd watch it, because it was on the weekends. But that was just, you know, great entertainment.
I don't
Great
know if this was
entertainment.
before your time, but when I was like first watching WWE, and this was like 99, 2000, like when you got a pay-per-view, which was like a huge deal growing up for me, like that was really splurging to get like the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
We actually had to like go to the cable company and get these huge boxes that like you had to hook up to your TV. Now you just like press a button and it's
Yeah.
ordered. But
Sure. Sure. I mean, I started watching about 4, maybe 5 years old. So like right around the tail end of the Attitude Era. Like I still remember like The Rock and Triple H, and I think Austin was out for a bit. He was injured, but he came back later. Taker came back as the American Badass and all that stuff. So right around 2000 was when I started watching. And then I kind of took a break for a little bit, and I came back. It was the Ruthless Aggression era. So I'm kind of more, even though I have those memories of the Attitude Era, I kind of consider myself more of a Ruthless Aggression era kid. And to be honest, I think it's kind of, in my opinion, probably a little bit better in terms of, storytelling and the wrestling. I think the rest, definitely around the early 2000s was when I think the wrestling aspect of it started picking up, but you still had that layer of storytelling in there. So it was like the perfect blend of the two.
yes,
But
there was definitely stuff in the Attitude Era I should not have been able to see as a 10-year-old, but
yeah, it was a different time.
yes.
But China, man, yeah, there was nobody like her at that point. This big woman, large, just beating up people, and just she was a badass.
And where they introduced her like initially as a bodyguard, so she took on this like traditionally like masculine role, and yeah, it's
Yeah,
and to watch her career over the next several years was really cool.
yeah, the evolution of China.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned grad school. Where did you go to school, and what were you doing at the time that you started getting back into wrestling again?
So I went to undergrad at Ohio University, so shout out to the Bobcats. And then I did grad school in Indiana, where I studied clinical psychology. So that was it's a very pretty intensive couple of years, and to be able to watch wrestling after class or after like internship or whatever was a lot of fun. But
Yeah,
yeah, so that's what I was doing, Indiana, and studying psychology.
definitely. So getting into wrestling, actually getting into professional wrestling, being an athlete, I mean it's no joke. A lot of, you take bumps, you fall. It's intense. Tell me about, where was that one moment that you said, I want to do this, and how do I get into it?
So it wasn't until actually I moved out to Colorado in 2015, 2016. And I just randomly looked up a wrestling school and I was like, oh, why not? I'm getting older now. I might as if I'm going to do it, let's do it. And it didn't quite work out at the time because just life. I had a pretty hectic job, but I was able to be like a ring announcer and like backstage correspondent for a local indie place. I met one of my closest friends there, to this day, still a really good friend. And I did that for about a year. Fast forward a couple more years, this friend said, hey, I'm teaching a class. I need warm bodies. Will you come? And I was like, yeah. So yeah, that's how I kind of started. I started training about like really training a year and a half ago.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's amazing. Like you're able to find that school like out of the blue. Who would have thought? So you start. You're getting your training. What kind of stuff are you like doing as far as like warm ups and exercises and drills and things like that?
So I try and still train like 2 or 3 times a week, which by day 3 of the week, you're really feeling it, like third day of consecutive bumps. But we do a lot of the rolls for warm ups. And when you're first starting, like super awkward. Like you can't remember how to do like a schoolyard somersault, but it all comes back pretty quick. So we do a lot of rolls. We get the bumps out of the way. And you know, there's something about taking that first bump of the night that just
Mhm.
really gets you going.
Oh
So
yeah.
we do some cardio drills as well, like the 5, 5, and 5. Um, my goal right now, I haven't gotten anywhere near it, but it's actually to run a mile in the ring. I'm still working up to that.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
All
that's
right.
and a lot of the once the warm-ups are done, we run a lot of like we focus a lot on like the psychology and like just the psychology of the match, the psychology of character, all of that.
Ah, yeah, you get like the full training, the the whole kit and caboodle, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. You know, you learn everything. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that they teach that. Yeah. All right. So tell me about like your first few matches. When you made your debut. What can you tell me about that time?
So I actually trained for a full year before I had a debut match. And even then I was a little hesitant. I didn't know if I was ready. I know of some like gifted folks that only train for like 3 months and then they're in the ring. But I trained a whole year and it was at Omega 9 here in Denver, Colorado, December 11th of 2022. So yeah, it was against Tyra Rusame. She's the Primo's premier pro wrestling women's champion out here. So it was awesome to get to work with her, and I just happened to debut at a full. It was a complete women's wrestling card. So the
Oh,
whole show was for women's wrestlers. So that was really cool, and just getting out in front of a live crowd, and you talk so or they talk so much about like the emotional solicitation of the audience, but you don't really get to feel that until you're out in front of a live crowd. So that was the biggest thing, like, whoa.
yeah. I mean that roar of the crowd kind of brings in that adrenaline rush. And you feel that energy, and it kind of helps you whether you win or lose. You feed off of that energy. You're a performer. You're going out there and doing it.
And
Yeah.
that like we were towards the top of the card simply because Tyra was the champion. And that adrenaline that lasted through the night. I remember driving home. I had like an hour drive home, and I was like, "What am I? I'm just supposed to go to bed now after this like amazing match and this experience." And uh, but yeah, the adrenaline rush for sure.
What I think is kind of fascinating is the evolution of women's wrestling. I've talked about this with a few other guests that I've had on. It's amazing to see the progress um, from the Attitude Era, and I'm not just talking about the major companies, but all across the board when it comes to professional wrestling with the women and how you know things have kind of shifted. I think that there's always that you know sex appeal
Sure.
type stuff, but um that competitive spirit, that competitive nature, we're starting to see that more, and I think it's drawing a lot of fans into the product. What can you tell me about you know that, because you watched it in the Attitude Era when they had a lot of that risque content, but to see the rise of women's wrestling in the progress that it's made, what can you tell me about that?
Um, One, it's absolutely like amazing, and the I mean, the women have always been able to do it. Now they just have the platform and the support and to be able to really like go for it. Um, Such a level of athleticism, like I don't think people realize like what goes into like appearance. Like you got to look like a wrestler, but you also have to have the muscle to be able to survive in the ring and perform some of these maneuvers, some of these uh, spots, if you will. So truly, it amazes me to see the athleticism. And now that they're like headlining pay-per-views and weekly television shows, doing everything that the boys do. I've watched some of the unsanctioned matches and the like street brawls. I don't know if that's for me, but it's. I mean, we're right up there doing exactly what the men are doing. I
Yeah,
also train with mostly guys, so there's not a lot of women wrestlers in Colorado, so we're kind of a smaller pool. Um,
really.
so to be able to get that, like I'm just one of the guys, like lay it in, it's cool.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, small amount of women's wrestlers in Colorado. Wow, I hope that changes. I'd love to see more.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, so you said you've been wrestling now for about a year and a half. Okay. What who can you tell me like some of your favorite opponents to work with so far?
Yeah. Tyra's been amazing. And she's been wrestling across the globe.
Hmm.
She is from Thailand, so she started out there, and has wrestled all the way across the United States, across the world. So that has been awesome, and to learn from her, and the just like from a veteran like that, and what she's seen about different types of wrestling styles, has been really cool, really memorable. And we also have an up and coming gal. I'm really excited. We haven't met in the ring yet, but I'm excited for it. Urza Menagerie Tinker. So she's coming up, and I hope to have kind of a match with her soon. But those are the memorable ones. Like I said, we're pretty small here, and I haven't
Yeah.
traveled uh, too far
Hmm.
outside of Colorado yet. But
Where have you gone?
I did one show in Kansas. And my brother's actually, I'm not going with him, but he's got a show in Arizona. So the Chase twins are slowly
Yeah,
making their way to surrounding states.
I love that. So when did your brother start wrestling?
Um, a few days after me, a few weeks after me. So he
Hmm.
saw what I was doing. He wanted to do it, and we've been doing it ever since. So he's been in it about a year and a half too.
That's so cool. So do you guys have like your own act? Is it just split up? Is it together?
Both, both. Oftentimes I'll come in to manage him. He's on a tag team called Chasing Glory, with our cousin, Major Glory. So I manage them. It would be cool to do like a mixed gender tag team.
Hmm.
Um, we haven't had maybe the opponents, or maybe we haven't even really floated that idea too much yet. And then when I go out for individual matches, he also manages me. So, and we're heels, so there's a bit of shenanigans,
Oh yeah.
chicanery. So
Do you prefer being the heel? Have you been a baby face yet?
I've not. I don't really even know how I got like put into the heel role, but I've really like tried to embrace it and learn all the bits and pieces to it. And there's nothing better than having a whole crowd, a whole venue booing you, or throwing uh, vulgarities at you. You're like, all right, I've done my job.
That's like the only time you could kind of get away with being evil to somebody is to actually, you know, be in front of a live crowd in a squared circle where it's, that's where the magic happens.
Yes, yeah. And to bring them into the story in different ways, it's a lot of fun. So Nikki Chase is kind of the Regina George mean girl. So part of inspiration of that, part inspiration of I don't know if you remember the Tudors. It was a TV show that was on maybe like 10, 15 years ago.
I've heard the
Um,
name.
yeah, it was about like Henry VIII and his wives.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a little bit of like Anne Boleyn from the Tudors in there. So really just kind of the mean girl.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen the movie, so I'm familiar with what you're talking about. All
Yeah.
right, yeah. I mean, you got to go with what works, the character that works. So if you're into your character, you're gonna skyrocket.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, goals in wrestling. What do what do you see yourself doing in the next 5 years as far as, being a wrestler? And do you have like any dream opponents?
Uh, I do. I have one dream opponent. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if I'll say her name because I don't know if I want to call her out quite yet. But I don't know yet. I know a lot of people talk about they get into this because they want to get to WWE as fast as they can. And that was never really like a goal of mine. I like to think it's like I'm still very much dedicated to the art and to the craft. But I don't know if I want to perform on the greatest stage of them all, if you will. I always thought I wanted to do like AEW Dark, but I know they recently kind of got rid of that. So I don't know. Definitely to travel a little bit more. Um, that would be awesome. Maybe get to one of the coasts where some of like the bigger wrestling shows are. But that's kind of where things are at right now.
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about wrestling in today's day and age is that there's so many options and that people can go anywhere, and apply their craft and, work whatever schedule they can. So it's just it's amazing to see, like I said, the progress of everything, and the alternatives that are out there now, you know.
Yeah,
So many
yeah,
companies.
absolutely. Yeah, and to make people angry in different states would be a lot of fun. So
Yeah. Yeah, I hope you and your brother are able to take, go around and take your act, into different places and just become, so popular, you know.
yeah,
With
and I
the-
don't know of any other brother sister twins, but maybe we'll be unique in that sense.
yeah, that's just so cool. It really is. So, shifting gears now, you've done a lot of charity work and volunteering outside of wrestling. Tell me about some of the organizations you've worked with.
Yeah, so I am uh my other job, if you will. I'm a therapist. So I've worked really hard. That's my second baby. I've worked really, really hard to get where I am with that. Um, there is a kind of youth mental health crisis going on, and it's been bad for a long time, but the pandemic just really exacerbated all
Oh,
of the
sure.
struggle
Mm-hmm.
that teens and were going through. So I previously did volunteer work for a organization that did free therapy for ages 12 through 20. Um, that was an age group I'm very passionate about working with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
being a middle schooler, high schooler, young adult is hard, let alone in an age of social media, let alone in the age of a pandemic. So my heart's kind of with them and being able to give back to that um, in that way.
Yeah, I mean, COVID hit hard, and just everything went out the window. Like so many people were fired from their jobs, got furloughed, and people were just anxious about what the world was going to be like with everything shut down. So there was a lot of uncertainty going on at that time.
For sure.
Um, especially, amongst kids where, they're not taking everything in. A lot of them went to online learning, and especially for high school students too, seniors you know didn't get the traditional graduation that you would expect or would think that they would get. So that's a lot they've got to take in. So kudos to you for being able to be out there and help somebody out when they need it, because that's just it's never easy. That's the one thing I've kind of learned with the pandemic is to take life one day at a time and enjoy it, never take it for granted. So it's just so devastating, what what happened.
Yeah. And like just being teens and like the voice of their friends, peers. both good and bad is like who they listen to. So you kind of rip that away, what happens to their social development? And we're seeing the impacts of that um, even now. Um, Suicide and suicidality kind of really skyrocketed with that age group too. So being able to learn more about that and be able to support them, yeah,
Mm, I
it's a
mean,
huge need, and I think
it
it'll be needs for years to come.
yeah, you just never know what somebody's going through in their life. And I know that depression was also a big uh factor as well.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. It's like I think we were. It was in a time when like it's like you're thinking March 2020. We were like all getting pulled from work, getting being at home, whatever the quarantine was, and in real time trying to figure out what the impacts would be. And it was really like our routine got pulled out from underneath us. The rug got pulled out from underneath us, and the impact that has on like mood and just overall well-being. Where it was very prominent, and like I said, we're still seeing the fallout 3 years on.
When did you start working with this organization? Was this at the start of the pandemic?
No, I had been with them before. I want to say 2019, sometime in 2019.
Okay. So roughly about a year or so, a little less than a year maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's just, unbelievable that so many people were going through that. And shocking to say the least.
yes, yeah. I think it, like I said, there was issues going on before with like teen mental health and just like the age we're living in, particularly like social media, the impacts of social media and constantly being on 24/7 for like a developing brain. And then add in COVID-19, and yeah, it was a whole new ball game.
Do you feel like in today's, developments, in today's state of everything, do you feel that the social media problem has gotten worse?
Um, yes. In a simple short answer, yes. We know now like the impacts, particularly um, like Instagram on like the well-being of young girls. They're particularly hit hard in regards to like body images, and like what they're supposed to be compared to like these highlight reels that people are putting out. Um, that's not reality in any sense, but they compare themselves. Um, so that is a particular age demographic that's been hit the
Mm.
hardest. And now I think so I was on TikTok, but it was like a total time suck, so I had to like get off. But the misinformation that gets spread about mental health, I'm so appreciative that like we're talking about it more. Um, and destigmatizing it and all of that, and there's a lot of like misinformation out there. So yeah.
Yeah, there's absolutely a lot of information out there when it comes to the internet, when it comes to social media. Anything, what do you feel like should be done to reduce the amount of stress and, amount of things that are happening now?
Like to teens in particular, or just like mental health?
It could be to both, honestly. Like you said, like the youngest generations are kind of hit hard by
Mm-hmm.
this, but this question could go for anybody too.
I think the biggest thing is conversations. We're like just being able to have a space where we can have like difficult conversations. We can have uncomfortable conversations. I think it's just like a culture now. Um, we're quick to point blame both directions, and to shut down any sort of conversation, and everything's so derisive, which just kind of closes the door for either side to walk into the arena and have these tough conversations. I think
Yes.
that's the biggest thing. Talking about it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. Yeah, because it's like you said, it's just one of those hard things to address, especially in today's day and time. But if we don't do it now, we're not going to be able to do it. We're never going to be able to do it. So the time is right to start, making these things public so that we can help generations to come with these issues.
Yeah. And like if someone like has a concern about like, oh, I saw this TikTok and I think I might have depression, like going to your doctor, like seeking out a therapist or a mental health professional, um, talking with teens about like, I don't know if you've ever seen the like Instagram versus reality, like being able
Yeah.
to have some of those
Yeah. Oh
conversations.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure. Yeah, it's like those instances of real life versus fantasy. What do you think is, your reality versus what you kind of see in your head kind of thing. And it's important to, you know, keep your chin up, your head up, and just start thinking like, positive thoughts. That's something we talk about on the show a lot of times is, you know, positivity, trying to lighten things up, trying to make sure, everybody's okay and doing well and mentally well, physically well. But yeah, I just think, you're doing a great deed of service by trying to help the next generation so that they can start improving and helping their lives.
and I work a lot with I know like there's a new generation out and they're I don't know if they're Gen Alpha, but I work a lot with Gen Z, um, who's like the TikTok generation, and I'm so excited that they're growing up and the ideas they have and the way they see the world. Like I'm very excited to like be at the table with them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of billed Gen Z as the future. Like they're going to help, with a lot of the issues that, millennials and before have kind of been, destroying or whatever like that, hopefully they can make a difference.
I don't know if like it's millennials so much like I think like we've really gotten stymied like between the generations point I'm of the millennial generation so I know those like
Oh, me
boomers
too.
or like the boomers
Yeah. Yeah.
comments or
Yep.
whatever my
Yep. Oh
parents are
yeah.
boomers and the silent generation when you think of
Mm-hmm.
like the older adults
Right.
um but yeah just being able to have a seat at the table and to bring new ideas and new ways of thinking I'm really excited they're an
Yeah,
amazing generation.
I am too. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
I think I just like everybody says they get into or psychology or therapy because they want to help people. And yes, I think that's a big part. We want to be able to give back. There's also this concept of like wounded healers, meaning that we've been through what they've been through and being able to reach out a hand and support them while they go through it. I think that's a big thing for me. I have this idea. I'm gonna get like a T-shirt that says like "middle school survivor" or something because it was just so it's awful, awful.
Sure.
Um, and teen girls like catty, and it sucks. And so being able to sit with them, um, be in the shit with them, and understand where they're coming from, and support them as they make their way out of it. To me, that's the little kind of difference I make.
Yeah, I mean, middle school, high school are very treacherous times, for teenagers, dealing with a lot of problems, peer pressure.
Yeah.
It's no fun. It's just it's times you don't want to relive, but you kind of have to go through it in order to get to where you want to go and need to go. So it's just one of those things where you kind of just have to stick with it and hopefully you're able to get out of the go to the other side, with a positive mindset.
Yeah, I think, and I grew up when like we didn't have cameras with us 24/7 and there wasn't people recording all the time. And thank goodness, because
Hmm.
I wouldn't want to see that. Um, but yeah, I can't imagine you couldn't pay me to be 13 again. And then, of course, this is like an adult brain looking down on a past experience, but to do what I can to be like, hey, this sucks and it gets so much better.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, listen, Nikki, I just want to say thank you for coming on Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and the
Yeah, thank you.
listeners. Where can people find more about you on social media? Do you have anything you want to plug real quick?
Um, I have my next show is Lucha Libre and Laughs pop-up show out here in Colorado on July 1st. It's at Ratio Beer Company. So if anyone wants to come out, it's free. Enjoy a day out in Denver. And I am mostly active on Instagram. And let me tell you what my name is because I don't know it off the top of my head. It's Nikki_Chase 16.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, those are the two places you can find me.
Very, very cool. Thank you again for coming on here, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Oh, well, anytime, anytime.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.